Okay, I think goddag. Jak heet Pedro de Bruyckere, and that's all the Swedish I know. Actually, what I've noticed for the past 10 hours, that a lot of what's written in Swedish I actually can understand because it's very close to Flemish. If you wonder what Flemish is, that's the old version of Dutch. We speak it, and the Dutch think we're old. That's it. Um, but to be clear, it isn't. And if you wonder if my English is perfect, guess again. I'll do my best. And before I start off, I want to dedicate this presentation to somebody because, and this is not to be very polite to the Swedish, but one of my most inspiring colleagues in teaching is actually Swedish. It's Bengt Söderhall from Gävle, and I want to dedicate this presentation to him. But, oh yeah, and I have to mention, I wrote a book. It's good. It's great. If you have complaints, check Twitter, and if you want to say to me in my face, I even prefer this. Okay? Forget about all the stuff. A question. Who in this room remembers the first class he or she taught that he or she was paid for? Yeah. How did it went? Wow, bad, good. I remember my first class, it went smoothly. My second class. Actually, 20 minutes in my second class, I sent all my students back home because I wasn't sure who would kill who. But they had their number. And that evening I drove home and started doubting if I shouldn't change jobs. It was my first day as teacher trainer ever. And I thought, well, I have two options: solve this or quit. And I called one of my older colleagues, Ingrid, and asked her, what did I do wrong? She explained to me everything. No, you have to know something about the group I was teaching. The group I was teaching were physical teachers, physical education, sports teachers. Look at me. Typecasting. And what I didn't know at that time was that most of the students who choose the option to become a sports teacher didn't want to be in education. But the only way to become busy in higher education, not going to university, was picking this option. So it was a very smart move by me, entering the classroom, first sentence, I'll make great teachers from you. Minus 20 degrees Celsius. And you'll have to read papers, newspapers. Minus 50 degrees Celsius. Newspaper articles about education. I know you can't drop below Kelvin, but it felt like that. So I asked Ingrid, what should I do? And she said, there's only one thing to do. Apologize. This was a giant step for me, a giant leap. So next class, they returned. They didn't carry any kind of weapon, luckily. And I said, hi, my name is Pedro. I'm sorry, because I didn't know you. And let's try again. And actually, if I still receive cards for newlyweds or children being born, it's from that group. Actually, this group became one of, we had a close relation, it was great, but after a couple of classes, I received a complaint. Sir, your class is the only class we have to sit still in. Yeah, because I'm teaching didactics and development psychology. You can't do sit-ups teaching this. Yeah, but still. And they gave me an idea. I said, okay, wait a minute. I promise you, in the last class, before the tests, you won't sit still. And became a kind of running gag. Sir, Will we have some movement today? No, 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 no. But I promise you, in the last class before the test, okay, the second to last class before the test, I entered the room and said, everybody take pencil and paper. They panicked. Pencil and paper test. No, 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 no test. Just write this down. And I gave them a poem I have written. And every verse was a chapter that we discussed. Chapter 1 about didactics and so on. In Dutch it's called something like hoofdstuk 1 de didactiek, denk ook aan pedagogiek. It's almost Swedish. And then I said, but this isn't a poem, it's a song. And I'll teach you the melody. It's a very simple melody. Hoofdstuk in de didactiek. Denk ook aan pedagogiek. And so on. Like in the US Army. And next week, I'll expect every single one of you in training suit. Because next to our school, there's a park. And we'll have our fun. The next week, I come with bicycle. They say, you won't run with us? No, no, no. I know my stuff. And and well, actually, even on the bicycle, I couldn't keep up with them. That's the truth. There was only one thing that I had forgotten: that all my colleagues who come by train have to cross the park in the morning. So they were very surprised to see 60 students shouting Piaget. Well, so I had to explain myself. But I had a great explanation because I learned in teacher training and in educational sciences there are some things like learning styles. People who are visual, people who have to hear about, but also kinesthetic learners. And so I thought this group are kinesthetic learners, so great. And actually, normally this group was the lowest performing group at my institute. Except that year. So I told this story over and over again to show learning styles exist. Sadly, then I read a book by Daniel Willingham explaining learning styles don't exist. My reaction, that's one opinion. Then I read this book, 50 Great Myths of Popular Psychology by Lilienfeld and colleagues. In this book, one of the 50 popular myths is learning styles don't exist. And luckily, both books are written by scientists, so you can check them. I did. And I was very surprised. Most of people know Kolb learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic learning. How many more different styles are there? We found over 69 other styles. None of them proven. Even there's a possibility to win $5,000. Who wants to win $5,000? Okay, the only thing you need to do is the following. You take a group of students. Luckily, you're teachers, you have access to pupils. Great. Check. You can take a learning style test by choice. I give the example with visual and auditory, but you can use whatever you want. Okay? And you take a learning style test from everybody in the group. And then you divide them randomly in two separate groups. Group A, yo, and Group B, hi. Group A, if you're a visual learner, you get it shown. If you are more auditory, you hear it. And that's for a whole group. You are being taught in the most preferred learning style. Clear? Hi, you'll hate me. You're visual, you'll have to hear it. Auditory, no, you have to see it. Clear? You are being taught in the least preferred learning style. The first scientists, the first person who can prove that Group A is performing better than Group B gets $5,000. Nobody succeeded until now. Are people still doubting? Because I can let you feel it. Who wants to feel that learning styles don't exist? Ooh, now you're scared. Okay, close your eyes. Clo- You're becoming very sleepy now. No, no, no. Close your eyes and try to think about a German Shepherd dog. No, the ear of a German Shepherd dog. Open your eyes. Probably you've seen an ear of a dog. But more interesting is what you didn't experience. You didn't hear somebody explaining how an ear of a German Shepherd dog looks like. Also, you didn't feel it. Close your eyes again. Try to imagine the voice of your loved one. If you don't have a loved one, think about your voice of your mother. Oh, no. I don't go into that. Okay, open your eyes again. Probably you've seen the person. Hopefully you've heard the voice. But more interesting, again, what you didn't experience. You didn't read a text describing the voice of the loved one. You didn't see a sonogram. You didn't see waves. If you did see waves, do contact me. You're very interesting for science. Actually, this little test was a test that I stole, I borrowed from Daniel Willingham. But it's true. Some people can remember more what they see, and some people can remember better voices. For instance, I'll be honest, I can't remember a single face at all. I'm really terrible at it. But learning styles is not about how well you remember visually or auditory. What it's about is about the one thing compensating for the other. And that doesn't happen. So learning styles were out. But the more important question was, it did work. Because my students were performing much, much better. So when I found out that the learning styles didn't work, why did they perform better? Well, maybe you've heard about John Hattie. I presume you've heard about John Hattie. And then you know if it's lower than 0, it means, well, it's a very bad idea. If you have 0 to 0.15, it's no learning, it's growing. If you have an average between 0.15, 0.4, it means average learning, average teaching. And then you have the big effects. And most of the people know about the feedback being important. But you know what is as important, has the same big effect? Something also mentioned in my example. A good relation between student and teacher. And if you listen back, I invested a lot of effort, because of my colleague Ingrid, in the relation between the student and the pupil. So that was the thing. And also, mnemonic tricks were also involved, because those students would never have opened their book before the test. At all. And I had to let them learn it by heart on rhyme. So that helped too. Actually, 2 years later, I had the same class for the very last time. I couldn't help myself. So suddenly I said, Hoofdstuk in de didactiek, and everybody continued the whole poem. Except the 3 students who came from another institute. Who were watching, what's happening? 2 lessons learned. Don't trust what you think you know. But also, it's also very relevant to know why sometimes some things work. Because that's a very important question. It's great to know that the learning styles wasn't the reason, but it was more interesting, why did it work? Okay, next step. Next on my list is something that it took 4 weeks of my life. What will follow now? It's this one. The learning pyramid. Yeah, also known as the Loch Ness monster of education. Because I remember the evening I was looking at the new book we would use in our teacher training department. And suddenly the pyramid was in it. And I had seen it before, but I suddenly asked myself a very simple question. How can they teach to others if they don't know it? Yeah, that was a very simple question. So far. Yeah, but how can they teach it if they don't know it and learn it by teaching it to others if they don't know it? So that was my simple question. So I started asking, well, where does it come from? Who made it? And little did I know that the answer to that question would be very, very difficult. Because you'll find Dale, you'll find Bale, you'll find Glaser, you'll find Glasser, and you'll find National Training Laboratories, NTL. I even know more people who claim that they made this pyramid. Actually, if you look to NTL, that's great. If you mail them, they answer, yes, we made it. It's based on our research, but we lost the research and the data. But do mention us, please. Okay. Actually, from the 5 names I've mentioned, one is almost correct. Because this is the cone of experience by Edgar Dale. And ladies and gentlemen, this cone of experience is one of the very first theories on multimedia learning. That's very interesting. Okay, it was based on John Adams, even older, 1910. But it has something to it because that we learn from concrete to abstract. Actually, this is correct. But there is something missing from this image. What's missing? The percentages. So, where did the percentages came from? Good question. And just before our book went to the publisher, somebody found even older source. We traced them back to the Second World War, and a corporal in the army found percentages great. Then suddenly found an even older source, 1912. Totally invented, but an older source. But when were they combined? We're not knowing it for sure, but one of the theories is that they were combined in 1968 or 1969 by an HR manager from a Texan oil company. You know, Texan oil companies, well known for their educational insights. The thing is, if you start looking for real science, the first real study on the educational pyramid is 2007. Then 2 researchers said, yeah, but what are the real percentages? And I have a big message for you. It's not a pyramid. It's a cube. Because there's no difference at all between any of the layers. Because if this was true, then there would be one way of teaching, the best way of teaching in any given circumstance for any given goal. Then teaching would become very, very, very easy. It isn't. So, again, 2 lessons learned. Never trust neat percentages. 50% of the people say, no, never trust neat percentages. And see also this one, this is becoming very popular, the 7-20-10 model. On my website, we have had big discussions with the people who are spreading the word about the 70-20-10 model. It means 10 model is learned through actually teaching, then 20 from others, and 70 by doing. And then I asked the people, show me the evidence. I got a very interesting reply. Why? Well, because you say it's evidence-based, so show me the evidence. And I've received, I think now, 15 different sources. And I always had to reply because I'm the stupid one who reads everything then. Yeah, but it's not in it. Can you send me the correct one, please? No, it's in the next one. Okay, show me the next one. And suddenly they said, yeah, but those percentages are more a metaphor. But they are correct. No, wait a minute. No. So again, 2 lessons learned. Don't forget to think. But the biggest lesson I learned is check the sources. Who knows Professor Morabian? Never heard about the man? But you know something that is related to him. 93% of our communication is non-verbal. Who's heard this one before? Who knows how the research was conducted? I'll tell you. Morabian asked an actress to say 3 times the word maybe with 3 different emotions. I recorded it. Then he asked her, show me 3 different emotions with your face, make the picture. And then he let people guess which emotion is shown or shared. That's the basis of this statistic. So Professor Morabian has a website asking people never to mention this again. Because he didn't say that every single situation is like this. Again, Morabian himself. I'm not referring to anybody else than the person who delivered the statistics. He says, unless a communicator is talking about their feelings or attitudes, these equations are not applicable. And again, if you would have thought a bit further, I'll try to eliminate the 7% for a couple of minutes. Works like a charm, no? Actually, that's because I'm a very bad mime, okay? But also emails wouldn't work. Telephone calls, try again. So, no. But I didn't say that the nonverbal does exist. Do note, nonverbal exists, but it depends on different situations. And what about this guy? Howard Gardner. Yeah. Actually, in our book, we don't say this is a myth. Okay, breathe out. Who knows who says this is a myth? Guess again, it's Howard Gardner himself. Howard Gardner himself said, a myth that irritates me is that people place my intelligence on the same footing as learning styles. And if you look how the multiple intelligence are being used in a lot of schools, it's the learning styles theory. It never was intended to be. Oh, and by the way, it's not intelligence. He's rather discussing a kind of talent, because intelligence has in itself a prediction that if you are scoring high on a test, that you will be good at something. That's not included in the multiple intelligence theory. Okay, now all good things come in 3. I have a third one that you have to need to check the sources. You know Maslow? You know from what? From what is known? Yeah, hierarchy. The hierarchy pyramid. How many levels does it have? 5. Yes. Some say 6, and iPhone users say 7. But actually, when I was writing the books together with Casper, somebody mailed me and asked me, can you check how many pyramids are included in the work of Maslow? And I felt a bit difficult, because I mentioned Maslow in work already myself, and I did what everybody do. Mention Maslow, didn't read him. So how many pyramids are present in the work of Maslow? 2 options. It's not 1, it's 0 or many. 0. And now you could say, de Bruyckere, that's what my wife calls me when she's angry. De Bruyckere, you're nitpicking, because in his work there's a hierarchy. It's not a pyramid. But a pyramid is not the same as a hierarchy, because in a pyramid you say, this is more important than all what follows. He never said this. And this is his first version, but he made a version with 7 and 8 later on. And now comes the very interesting part, because 20 years after, and I'm still only mentioning Maslow himself, 20 years after his first work on this, He wrote a paper that, in the paper he said, I can't understand that everybody is copying this theory without questioning it, because I'm convinced it's wrong. Because he looked at scientists, at artists, at sportsmen, who are all busy with this, forgetting about that. So they didn't understand his theory well, I think. No, actually, after his death, from the 70s on, people started examining the whole theory and nothing stands. But we keep sharing this element. The reason why? Well, it's very interesting. An image helps to convince. Oh, wait, I can do better. This is Newman who has shown that an image helps to convince. And checking the sources can also be very, very surprising. Because, you know this guy? Sugata Mitra, one of the most famous TED Talks ever, about hole in the wall. He describes people starting to learn, children in the slums of India starting to learn, because he put a computer there. Actually, I didn't check him because I didn't believe him, but because his results are so different than many other scientific research. I wonder, how did he manage? What was my biggest surprise? What he's saying on stage doesn't fit what he's describing in his own research. In his own research, he describes that only the strongest boys used the computers to play computer games. And the weaker boys weren't allowed, and the girls, well, no option there too. And Donald Clark and other scientists has checked him, and when they went back, well, most people didn't even remember that it was conducted. I didn't say it wasn't conducted, but it didn't have any lasting effect. And while talking that, TED Talks, I have a last one. What about him? Ken Robinson, the most shared TED Talk ever, with his claim, does school kill creativity? It's a different story. Actually, the paperclip example, you know, a little kid, 6 years old, knows a lot of usages of the paperclip, and the more we school them, the less they know. This study does exist, but the Turing tests of creativity thinking use a very, very narrow definition of creativity. Actually, all the other studies with a different definition of creativity only shows that creativity grows with getting older. Yeah, that's a different story. And school kills creativity does sound like society corrupts the child. That's Rousseau. And the only thing Ken Robinson does is rehashing Émile by Rousseau. Nothing wrong with this, but it's the same. A better question, in my humble opinion, is, does school foster creativity enough? That's a different story. But it's not so damning for education. We don't kill it, but I do think we don't foster enough. So 6 lessons learned, many more followed, and actually Ben Goldacre is very true with his title. It's a bit more complicated than that in every single case. And maybe one day, cream pies or hot fudge may be declared healthy. No, I have to explain this. This is a reference to the movie Sleeper. And Sleeper takes place, a Woody Allen movie, in 2100, and they are laughing with us because we didn't know that hot fudge is the most healthy food on earth. No, we eat the dangerous salad. So maybe one day, there will be evidence that learning styles do work. Maybe one day, people will show that we have a real creative brain side and a rational brain side. But until then, be careful with the hot fudge. So I want to conclude with what I haven't said. What I haven't said is, be a boring teacher. No, be concrete. Dale was correct. I haven't said people don't differ. They don't differ in learning styles. They do differ in prior knowledge and interest. And I didn't say stop trying and searching and researching, because the biggest thing I found out is how little we do know. So that's why I'm glad to be talking and research it, because I want to learn more myself. There's still a lot to discover throughout the day, throughout your life. Thank you. Oh, I have a big announcement. I have a big announcement, and they would kill me if I didn't say this. But the book Urban Myths about learning education is being translated to Swedish. And Student Literature will put it out in fall. I'm quite pleased with that, actually. Bye. Oh, a question. Yes. I'll do it this way. It's a quote from 1997, but he repeated it 2 years ago in another article, actually. But the source, the original source, is also mentioned in the book, so you can trace it back.